Josh Norris is back. The Sabres get their number one center, in theory, back in the lineup. What does it mean? We'll get into it coming up on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
Your Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome in to this Monday edition of the Locked On Sabres podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We are free and available, of course, wherever you may be listening to your podcast. You can watch the show on YouTube. Be sure to do that. You can like and subscribe if you do that. You could also become a part of our Locked On Sabres text club. If you're not already, head over to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnSabres and you can sign up. Today's episode of Locked On Sabres presented by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app right now. If you want to be in the middle of the action this season, FanDuel.com, NFL live bets all season long. Sneaky Joe DiBiase here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network. We are between games. Sabres beat the Wild over the weekend. They will play in Winnipeg here on Monday night. A little bit coming up a little bit later on that game. Some of what we saw in Minnesota. The Sabres found a way to win a game without really scoring a goal of their own. They got some help along the way. We'll talk about what we saw in Minnesota. A really cool moment for Noah Ostlund, who I think has been playing very well for the Sabres, and I hope to see him continue to be in the lineup. For him to get the shootout winner, the fourth guy in the rotation, so it's not like it went on forever before they got to him, and he made a very nice move to close that game out and get the win for the Sabres, and they could take every win they can get and all the positive vibes that we can handle if we can get any. And now the Sabres sit 5 points out of a playoff spot with every team to climb over. So we head into a new week, and I think I have said there's a bunch of different ways to look at it. Lindy's5.com is one site that we've mentioned on WGR in recent weeks, where Lindy had this plan of if you get, 3 of every 5 points, or more than that, actually. Maybe it's I don't even remember now because, again, we're just so lost in the standings that I don't even remember. But there's a Lindy's 5 strategy. There's win this many out of this many. There also is looking at the standings the way that I had proposed it, which is just climb over one team a week. That's it. Don't even worry about how many points out you are. Climb over one team a week, and within a month and a half, you'll be in a playoff spot. Well, 1 week into that, they have not climbed over anybody. At the moment, they are below everyone. Toronto, 1 point ahead. Florida, 1 point ahead, and so on and so forth. So theoretically, they could win tonight and be above both Toronto and Florida, which imagine if I told you that before the season, that, hey, there's a game in December. First game in December. If you win it, you jump over Florida and Toronto. You'd probably think the season's going pretty well. Obviously, not the case. Last place. But, hey, they're 3 points out with a win tonight and some help around the league. So, could be worse, I guess. Josh Norris is returning, and that is the big story of the day. We'll get to what happened in Minnesota, and we will preview tonight's game as well. But the big news is that Josh Norris, who was injured in the first game of the season while taking a face-off, leaning over to take a face-off, bam, shoulder injury, and he's out for nearly 2 months. He almost missed 2 months. So it ended up being about the timeline that we were expecting for him. And he comes back. And now we revisit, I guess, what are expectations for him and how well this could go and really what the risk is of Norris re-entering the lineup. Because the injuries are the number one story with him right now. Josh Norris is injury prone. There's no other way around it. The guy has a degenerative shoulder problem. I don't know any other way to describe it. Like, this is multiple injuries to the same shoulder where you don't really have much action injuring it. It's not like he took a massive hit and crashed into the wall and bam, the shoulder. Like, this is common movement that happens to a guy in a game, in practice, that is causing an injury. And that is when you get really worrisome about what's ahead, what's the future, and is this guy going to be able to have a career? Because if he were to be injured again, in the next little bit. Doesn't have to be tonight, doesn't have to be the next game, but if he's not able to play a significant amount of games in a row here for the Buffalo Sabres, then suddenly we're going to have to be talking about options in the offseason, whether that is buying out a guy, whether long-term IR rules or something we're going to have to start familiarizing ourselves with. We'll have to really figure out what's ahead because he is their highest paid forward, unbelievably, at $7.9 million. And he is only in the fourth year of an 8-year contract. He does not become a free agent until 2030. So they are tied to this guy, unless, again, they decide something else down the road, buyout, whatever. They have this guy on the team for a long time. He, at the moment, would have no value, so you're not trading him. Nobody is going to be acquiring a player with this injury background, especially the 2 added injuries since you acquired him from Ottawa. So there's a short term and there is a long term here for Norris re-entering the lineup. The short term is you need all the help you can get, and your scoring could use all the help that it can get. Your power play could use all the help that it could get. Norris, a guy that has had success in Ottawa on the power play, was supposed to be the right flank man on that number 1 unit for the Buffalo Sabres, and obviously he only played the 1 game. The Sabres are 21st in the NHL in power play percentage so far this year. So can Norris help take them from 21st to, can you get into the low teens? Can you get to being the 15th or 14th best power play in the league? Can you be scoring instead of on about 17% of your power plays? Can you get somewhere up around 20, 21%? That might not sound like a lot, but you score 3 or 4 more goals every 100 power plays, and eventually that is actually going to mean points in the standings over the course of an entire season. And there still is a lot of season left to go here with just under 60 games. So I think Norris could be very helpful there. Penalty kill, I guess he could be helpful, but I don't think you need to touch that. The Sabres have been the best penalty kill in the NHL all season. They actually were just passed this weekend by Tampa. Tampa now is 0.2% better than the Sabres as the best power play in the NHL. Still second best. I don't think you need to throw Norris up there. I think actually that would be one area where you could probably decrease his minutes to try to keep him healthy. Why throw him out there to block shots on a penalty kill? It just doesn't seem necessary. That's kind of the big question about how they'll operate with Norris is, what are the minutes going to look like? Because on paper, the lines at practice, he's the number 1 center. He is centering a line for tonight's game against Winnipeg, and he will be in the lineup. This is the line that we saw in training camp and at the end of last season that I think it was expected would be their number 1 line, which is Norris centering, Zach Benson on the left, and Tage Thompson on the right. If you are centering that caliber of line, you're playing almost the most minutes, probably at forward. You're probably playing 18, 19 minutes a night. And that's not protecting him. That is not taking it easy, being cautious, where you might think, well, why don't you throw him in for 14, 15 minutes in the first couple of games and make sure that he gets through it. I don't know if that's going to happen when Tage Thompson and Zach Benson are your line mates, unless they want to shift things around in a third period or in a second period. I don't know. But that's the line he's on, going right to the head of the snake going into tonight's game. The other thing that Norris's entry into the lineup does that I do not like is it is having them put Tage Thompson back on the wing. I almost said forcing him back on the wing, but it's not forcing him. It's their choice to put Tage Thompson on the right wing and maybe get that relationship between Norris and Thompson rolling, chemistry between those two. They seem very intent on making that happen, Norris and Thompson, in part because I think they're their 2 longest tenured forwards, or they're under contract forwards going, into the future. Those are the 2 guys that you expect to be here longest based on the deals they're on. So they're going to want to make that work. I don't see the need, personally. I think the lineup looks a lot better when Tage is at center. Simply put, I think this would have been an opportunity to slide Ryan McLeod down into a third-line center role that he is better equipped for. Not that he's been bad as a top 6 center. I actually think he's performed admirably having to play as a top 6 guy. But in a perfect world, he's your third-line center. And that would allow you to have a legitimately strong top 6 if you can get good results out of Norris, which should not be assumed. You could have gone Thompson at center and Norris at center 1-2. And You could stick Thompson back with Tuck if you want, and maybe keep Benson up with them. And then you could go Norris with maybe Josh Doan and Alex and Noah Ostlund, for instance. You throw a kid up there with them, or Jack Quinn up there if you want to mess around with that McLeod line. Zucker. Like, you could have really had a strong top six, and instead feel like they're kind of weakening the top six by keeping Norris and Thompson together. I don't think Thompson's at his best on the wing. I think he's better at center. And I don't know whether this is Lindy that likes him a lot on the wing. That has been said by him in the past, although he's kind of backed off that in recent weeks. I'll actually probably ask him about that tomorrow on WGR, about Thompson wing versus center. I know we've done that before, but it's always evolving as a conversation. I don't know. I think Thompson's better at center. Norris would be better equipped, I think, to be your second line center than your first line center, and everything just kind of fits better. Whereas now, I don't mind the lineup. For this game, I don't mind it. Noah Ostlund gets to stay in, and that's big for me because I think he's been really strong. He's been giving them good minutes. I've liked him shift to shift. He's been pretty good responsibly in his own end. I think that's a big reason why he gets to stay in. And your third line, on paper, your third line of Ostlund, Doan, and Tuck, like, you are surrounding Ostlund with the most talent possible, or that he could expect being in the lineup still. Like, getting to play with Tuck especially, although Tuck had a really bad moment in that Minnesota game, I think is a very good thing for the rookie. So don't hate the lineup. I just think it would be better if Thompson was at center and Norris was on line too. But they're going to go forward together. Benson doing the dirty work on that line. Josh Norris, let's see what we get. $7.9 million. Also, I think Sabre fans would really like that trade to start looking good. And I see it on Twitter a lot. I try not to partake too much. I have my opinions on that trade. I don't think it's as bad as it's made out to be. I don't think Norris has any reason for it to be good. I just don't think Dylan Cousins is a very good hockey player. And he's got 4 even strength goals on the season. He's doing power play stuff, which I guess is important too. But I look at that trade right now and think, well, Ottawa, I guess, has a player that's on the ice. And the Sabres got a bad contract in exchange. I just don't think they're missing a lot. But it does look like a win for Ottawa at the moment. How can it not? And some level it is. And you could debate how much of one. Norris coming back into the lineup and performing well. Sabre fans don't have a lot, right? Like, there's not much to win on here. They are bottom of the standings, 14-year playoff drought. The team annoys fans relentlessly. I think one of the few areas that you can actually have some fun with and puff your chest out is when you also win a trade and you can kind of stick it to that other fan base. You needle them a little bit more. This is more a Twitter thing. And that's happened with the Ryan McLeod trade. Like, there's not many of those, but a win, a clear win. You won the Ryan McLeod for Matt Savoy trade. That is happening before our eyes. And you can needle Matt Larkin or Oilers fans if you want. There's none of that with Sabre fans are trying to fight the good fight with Ottawa fans on Twitter. I see with why Cousins is not as good as the Senators fans think he is. But you can't really make a strong argument about the trade if Norris isn't available. So we'll see if he makes that any better going forward. When we come back, before we get to tonight's game, I want to look back on the Minnesota game. I mentioned earlier, the Sabres didn't really score a goal in this game, and they found a way to win. But, hey, they found a way to win. That when we come back here on Locked On Sabres. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast is presented by DripDrop. When you're hydrated, everything just works better. Your focus, your energy, your mood, even skin. That's why you got to use DripDrop. It's doctor-developed hydration that'll keep you running at full power no matter what your day looks like. DripDrop is not your average sports drink. It delivers 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of leading brands using a science-backed formula trusted by medical professionals, firefighters, and over 90% of the top college and pro teams. DripDrop should be a part of your daily routine. You'll mix a packet in the morning before the gym or during that midday slump. Very easy. Tastes amazing. Find your go-to flavor and stick with it. Hydration has become non-negotiable. DripDrop will help you feel sharper, calmer, and honestly just overall better. Right now, DripDrop is offering podcast listeners 20% off your first order. So go to DripDrop.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL. It's DripDrop.com. Promo code LOCKEDONNHL for 20% off. Stock up now. Keep your body and mind performing at their best with DripDrop. Sneaky Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. The Sabres and the Wild over the weekend, and the Sabres got the result. They performed pretty well, I would say, in this game. I mentioned a couple of times they did not really score a goal in this game. When you look at it, the Beck-Malenstein goal in front, I mean, that was closer to a real goal. That's a 3-on-2 situation. Peyton Krebs fires it at the net, and as a fourth line should do, big bodies, Josh Dunn, and Beck-Malenstein charge to the net. They take two defensemen with them, and suddenly now, the Krebs shot, which he placed really well. Like, that is a shot that you need to take for a rebound. So, that Krebs shot, especially when you're Peyton Krebs, and you got to know you're not like a naturally gifted NHL goal scorer. That shot, you can't be shooting to score. You got to be shooting for rebound. And the best way to do that is to put it on the far pad so that it's going to kick out into a dangerous area. And when you have two guys charging to the net and taking two defensemen with them, you've got four bodies now in front of the net, all to the left of Gustafsson. And the odds of that puck hitting one of the four bodies and going in because of the shot that Peyton Krebs threw on net made that closer to a real goal. Like, that is a planned attack there by that fourth line on a 3-on-2 rush, and it did end up working out. So it looks like it's luck because you're getting a bounce in, but that's on purpose, both by the two forwards going to the net and by Peyton Krebs. The other goal was luck. The other goal is a Josh Doan 2-on-1 rush coming in because a defenseman fell down at center ice, and then Doan takes the shot. It goes off the glass, and then Matt Zuccarello, trying to grab the puck, throws it into his own net by accident. So take the breaks when you could get them. And that was enough to get them to overtime. And then Noah Ostlund, as I mentioned, a really great backhand to forehand move in the shootout. Tage also scoring in the shootout. So Sabres get the result. I like this game for Colten Ellis. I really liked Colten Ellis' effort in this one. I really thought he would start again because I thought they were doing make it, take it goaltending, but he is not playing tonight. But I thought he was really strong in Minnesota. He had made a lot of great side-to-side saves. A lot of pucks that found their way cross ice that he had to really sprawl out to save. There was a wraparound effort like that. There were a couple of one-timers across the ice that he got across to and made the save. He had a really good one where he got a little lucky after. He made a save with his blocker on a point-blank shot in front of the net. And you might remember this play where he saves it, blocker/stick even, and then it goes off Dahlin and behind him. So he almost got unlucky, hits the crossbar, bounces over, I think it was Boldy's stick, and it ends up skirting away. But it started with an amazing save on a point-blank chance with the blocker that he flashed. So I really liked Ellis in this game. He allows 2 goals in 65 minutes, and then made a couple of saves in the shootout, although Tarasenko missed the net on his opportunity. And at the end of the day, some of the numbers on what Ellis did, obviously, if you just look at some of the basic ones, he allows 22 tough one there, 22 saves on 24 shots. So he allows 2 goals there. And if you look at the expected goals in this one, it's about what was expected. It's 2.0 expected goals for Minnesota, and he allows 2. So he actually did exactly what was expected of him, but I really liked a couple of those saves that he made in this one. The Kaprizov goal in the first period, like, that's an open one-timer across, and that's an elite goal scorer. Not a lot you can really do on that. So I thought the Sabres were pretty good, though, in this game. Like, I thought they controlled a lot of the pace. I think they had just as many chances as Minnesota did. In fact, some of those numbers would point to they had a little bit more, 27-24, were the scoring chances. They obviously outshot Minnesota in this game. They've been out shooting teams a lot lately, and they were getting some quality opportunities. So I don't know. When I look at that game, I think the Sabres were the better team. I don't think it was a total one-sided effect. So while they got lucky on some goals, they might have deserved a couple of ones that they didn't get at other periods of time. I thought Tuck won it on that wraparound in overtime. So some good moments for them. And an overall, I thought, pretty good effort. They got their luck along the way. They got their shootout goal, and they get through overtime without giving one up, which really has been the goal here. And Minnesota came in with a 7-game winning streak. So you're going on the road where they have not won at all this year. 2-6-2 now after the win. You haven't won on the road. You're playing a team on a 7-game win streak. They're playing their starting goalie. They're pretty healthy as a team. and you went into their building and outperformed them and got the win one way or another, I think that's a good night for the Buffalo Sabres. And Ostlund, again, good to see him get a good moment there at the end of the game. When we come back, we'll look to Buffalo and Winnipeg. I got my bet of the night. We're still plus 10.0 units on the year. What we're going to get in goal. A couple other things about the Jets. The Jets are not healthy going into this game, and they're missing their best player. We'll tell you about that when we come back here on Locked On Sabres. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast is presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you are reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is great when the game is starting to shift, receiver gets hot, defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. That's big too. FanDuel lets you jump into that moment. You could check out whether it's player props across the league, live spreads, money lines. They're adjusting instantly as the game is moving along. You could bet who will score the next touchdown, drive results, totals, and plenty more. Keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, and every possibility. So, if you want to be right in the middle of the action this year, visit FanDuel.com. Place your live NFL bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Speaking of FanDuel, we'll have our sneaky good bet of the night coming your way in a little bit. Sabres and Jets tonight. 7:30 puck drop in Winnipeg. The Sabres and the Jets. And again, the Jets are, not in Winnipeg. This game is in Buffalo. It's not on the road. The Jets do not have Connor Hellebuyck for this one. And that is important because there is no goalie in the league that is more tied to whether his team succeeds or not than Connor Hellebuyck, who he has not always been great in the playoffs, but regular season has been as consistently solid a goalie as you have seen in the NHL in my lifetime. Consistent. Maybe not the best, but consistent. He's been good pretty much every single year since he entered the league in 2015. A decade of rock-solid, star-level goaltending from Connor Hellebuyck. This year, off to a pretty good start, but injury. And he is out and has been out for a couple of weeks, and he will not play in this game tonight. The guy who has been kind of picking up the slack has been former Sabre, and also he was in Winnipeg before the Sabres. Eric Comrie has been the guy for the Winnipeg Jets. Thomas Milic also has been someone that has been kind of working into the rotation here, but for the most part, it has been Eric Comrie against the Buffalo Sabres. And that is not confirmed at this moment, whether he's starting in goal. I would expect, though, that he probably will. Revenge game, if you will, against his old team. He did have yesterday off. They didn't play like a back-to-back or anything. He did play the night before against Nashville, and he won 5-2. So Comrie, who's not been great this year, .898 save percentage, 500 record, better, I guess, than maybe what he did here, but not somebody that I'm threatened by at all. The Sabres, meanwhile, are going to be going with Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. I thought they'd be going back to Colten Ellis. I thought make it take it. Ellis was really good against Minnesota, or at least pretty good, and you had a day in between. Coming back to Buffalo, no Ellis. Okay. Instead, they are going to Luukkonen, who did not play either of the last two games because Lyon got his start against New Jersey. So Luukkonen, who I don't think is trustworthy at all in the net, and Comrie, who is a definite backup in the NHL, not a guy who should be starting a lot of games and has had to here because of injury. My bet of the night, if you feel where I'm going with this, I'm taking the over in this game. 6.5 goals at plus 104. You get that into plus money, plus 104, over 6.5. It's a lot. It's a lot to ask. It's, a 4-3 game to get you there. Or, if you can get one team to score 5+, then you should be good too. You might need an empty netter, but 6.5 is the over. I don't know that I've taken an over since the second game of the year I did. but I've not taken many overs this year for the Buffalo Sabres, but I am feeling better about this one. Winnipeg's got their talent up front that I like a lot. Buffalo has Norris coming back. I guess that helps. But to me is more about the two goalies. And I'll take an over when those are your two goalies in a game almost any day of the week. So I like that for tonight's game. The Sabres, as we mentioned, Josh Norris is back in the lineup. Everything else pretty much looks the same for the Sabres. They're just putting Norris in, Tage on the wing, and then the Ostlund tuck line gets thrown together there as kind of the third line, really more of like a 2B or a 2A line. The Jets. So the other thing about Winnipeg that is a little bit different, if Sabre fans have not been watching them a lot this season, being, usually playing out west a little bit more, Jonathan Tage back in the NHL and playing this year for Winnipeg. He's not doing a lot. Now, he had long COVID illness. Like, he was really trying to come back from that, and it's almost amazing that he even is playing again in the NHL. He's playing 16 minutes a night. He's winning a lot of faceoffs. When you look at the numbers there, he's at 63% on the season. Again, it's only 9 points. He's actually the worst on the team in plus minus. Not that I am telling you the plus minus is the end all be all, but he's certainly not Jonathan Tage of old. And if you forget, Tage in his last couple of years in the NHL in Chicago had really turned a corner in the negative. Like, he was not the same player. He was not a great player really at all in the last couple of years in Chicago. So maybe not that surprising that he has been pretty weak for Winnipeg so far this year. I just pulled up his goals above replacement numbers at Evolving Hockey, and he's one of the worst players in the league. One of the worst forwards in the league so far this year. 4th percentile overall. So he's on the team now, and you might go, hey, Jonathan Tage. We're in the 10-year anniversary of the drought. Not the drought, of the tank. And he obviously had a big tank moment for the Sabres, but we'll see what we get from him and the Jets overall tonight. Still the big heavy hitters who have been there a while: Scheifele, Connor, Morrissey. Like, those are the studs to keep an eye out for. All right, Sabres and Jets, enjoy the game. We will talk to you after it is over. Again, maybe the Sabres can climb over Toronto and Florida in the standings tonight, which is still kind of incredible if they can do that, given how bad they've been at times this year. All right, that'll do it. Be sure to check out Locked On NHL Game Night. Check them out wherever you may be listening to your podcast. All that happened throughout the weekend. Get local analysis on a national stage. You can also check them out on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast. Talk to you tomorrow here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now your #1 sports podcast network.